This week on the Droids, we're finally talking about all the announcements from Disney, the new series, now 11 new Star Wars series up and coming. We're going to hear from Sam from his thoughts on the Mandalorian finale, plus the holiday special, the Lego holiday special. We're going to talk about all that and probably more about Luke, I would guess, this week on the Droids. Welcome back to the Droids You're Looking For, a Star Wars podcast. Alongside all of the droids for this edition, Chris, Ryan, Sam, I am Mike. Back to talk more about Star Wars and what we found out in that finale of The Mandalorian. I don't know. We let it simmer. We let it sit. We see what's happening in the world across, above, beyond this podcast, and we think more about it. So I think we have to start things off with the only member of the crew, the only droid who hasn't been able to voice his thoughts on the finale. And Sam, take us through what you thought in this episode, how you took away from it. Did you feel in line with the three of us? Where were you? Where'd you land in your reactions to this finale?
Yeah. I mean, thanks. I had sent some thoughts along, and you guys, thanks for reading them on the pod. I thought your guys' episode was great, and I don't have a lot to add, but to say where I came down, I really liked the episode. I really enjoyed it. I like where they've left things and what they've set up for, a potential season 3 storyline. Just going through, I enjoyed the opening, and I enjoyed the sort of fake out they pulled with this, the chase, the space battle chase, and I love seeing all the mechanisms of kind of a red alert on Moff Gideon's Star Destroyer. I liked I loved the Girl Squad. I thought it was a fun team up. I like that they hatched a plan that you kind of knew was going to go wrong from the off, and then promptly did. I was glad I thought, they're really hammering home that these dark troopers are droids, which I thought was important for later on in the episode, that they were robots, not people. And I thought that the space, like the flight combat, and the hand-to-hand combat was really, really good. I mean, we got some cool, just like really good action sequences this episode. 2 really great fights for the Mandalorian. One against the Dark Trooper, the solo Dark Trooper that made it through the blast door, and of course against Moff Gideon. I thought Giancarlo was amazing this episode. I mean, he's always good, but they really gave him something meaty to do, and they made him kind of like wily and just. Even as someone who is presently watching through Clone Wars and catching up on so much of this lore with Mandalore and the Death Watch and the Darksaber and everything, it's like I didn't see the twist, quote unquote twist coming of like setting it up that Mando now holds the Darksaber that Bo-Katan wanted. I thought that was so great, and that she can't take it, and it kind of sets her up as a potential, hero as antagonist for a future season is really exciting. And with the Luke of it all, I've really wrestled with where I came down. I think I was saying just before we started recording that, I'm trying to divorce my reaction to Luke showing up from, what I'm reading online and what I'm reading about who likes it and who doesn't, because I feel like largely Star Wars fans that I align with more don't like this depiction of Luke, and Star Wars fans that I take umbrage with seem to celebrate him. And I'm trying to like remove that and isolate back to like, how did I feel? And I think for me, the big thing was that like his arrival for me was a little bit of an eye roll. I think for me, the biggest thing was I was like, can we not get through a Star Wars movie and not actually make it part of the Skywalker saga. You know, like Rogue One, Leia turns up in, and I mean that's like a barely there cameo, you know.
And
but
Vader
that is
has a
so
hallway.
that is so directly tied to, you know, the original trilogy timeline, and bridging the gap between the prequels and the original trilogy. And then with this, it's like this was the whole conceit of the Mandalorian was like this takes place outside of the Skywalker saga. You know, we're not dealing with the Jedi, and it made it so. It was so great when Ahsoka showed up. But I did think kind of like, oh, here we go, it's Luke. That said, I think I genuinely, I think I had fun. I had fun with seeing him, you know, go ham with a lightsaber and use the Force and be, you know, be a badass. It's not the Luke like I'm here for, you know. It's not like my favorite version of Luke, like kind of at all. But I had fun with it, and I did, you know, I couldn't help but kind of not gasp, like, you know, we kind of Mike predicted it, but like, you know, we knew it was on the table, but I think it was still a surprise, right? That it was like, yeah, wow, they did it. And yeah, so anyway, so my takeaway was like, I really and the last beat of the episode, you know, Pedro Pascal, you know, unmasked with Grogu, it was like that sealed it up. That made it a really great episode for me. Eager for more. We'll talk about Book of Boba when we start talking about the announcements of the new slate. But I had fun. I thought this season. I think maybe I overall liked better than first season because I think it was a cohesive story. This was getting Grogu to his people, to the Jedi, and that's what the season was, and that's what the season achieved, and I liked it a lot.
Yeah, and Sam, I mean, Luke doesn't show up in every Star Wars thing. He was not in Episode 1, 2, and 3, or any of the Clone Wars.
Well, he was in Episode 3.
He was in Episode 3.
I have to go.
That's true.
And that's humiliating.
Oh man.
Oh man.
You tried to dunk on me.
Chris did a lot of Chris is the resident optimist on the pod, and he did a lot of emotional labor to let us feel okay about the Luke and the Luke of it all, and mentioned that you know, we're seeing like an EU Luke. And that's cool. You know, he looked like the cover of an EU novel.
Yes, he did, exactly. It's like where they have to grab a still from the movie and kind of insert him into another scenario.
Yeah. And that is cool. And I know that, like, I was down on it, and I still have my feelings about it on a macro level. But at the same time, I've also seen some Twitter threads that explain it in a beautiful way, how this fits into the arc of Luke. And kind of toward the end of the episode last week, we kind of got into, like, how this may, you know, head canon or not, can kind of take place within the overall arc of the Star Wars that we like so much. So, you know, I'm coming around. I don't think it was the answer, but I'm still conflicted, but I feel a little better about it.
I sense much conflict in you.
Yeah.
I'm coming around as well. I will say I appreciated those threads that you mentioned, Ryan. The one thing that gets to me, and this is probably, again, the way that I reacted the first time that we watched it and the way I talked about it on the show, is that there's more nuance written in those threads than the majority of people who are just pumping their fist and saying, oh, wow, you know, I'm trying to not swear this time, screaming at the top of the lungs watching Luke tear it up, than the people who are giving them the credit for it. Like, I think there's this, oh, you know, Last Jedi fans hate this, and obviously Last Jedi haters love this, and really both sides need to come together. And I get that, but I don't. My issue is the perception. My issue is this gave that group something to celebrate. That even if the choice, which I did say the choice was a rebuke to what Rian Johnson had done with The Last Jedi, even if that choice by Favreau and Lucasfilm, because Filoni's part of it, but that it was a Favreau written episode. This is the show he created. Filoni's giving him episodes, and he's obviously setting up Ahsoka and what he's going to do there. But I look at it as like that perception that they gave them that moment to say, oh, this is that, bothers me more than whether or not it was the choice, because I don't think that you should give any ammunition to the people who want that Luke, who want the characterless Luke, who want just the action avatar.
And that's the thing that got me and kind of annoyed me was I saw a lot of people saying things, and, you know, I don't need to read this part of Twitter, but a lot of people saying things like, you know, Favreau and Filoni knew what to do with Luke in 10 minutes, what the whole sequel trilogy didn't know what to do with him. Like, this is how you save a saga. Like, that was, like, a common sentiment among a lot of people. And it's like, they didn't do anything with him.
Yeah.
Like, it's cool to see him. It was a cool cameo and stuff. But to think that this was, like, in-depth character work is insane. You know what I mean? Like, that's just, like, crazy to me to be like, this is what you do with a character. And it's like,
right.
He was an action figure, and that's cool. Like, it's fun seeing it. But it's like, they didn't do anything. They didn't add anything to the mythos of Luke Skywalker other than that he had some kind of involvement with Grogu that may have ultimately led again to Grogu being slaughtered at a temple or being the shortest knight of Ren. But
right, yeah,
we don't know that. He may have escaped at some point.
There's
but,
two Grogus standing on each other's shoulders.
Yeah, but again,
row.
whether you feel cool about like that we saw Luke here and that he is involved in this storyline, I think it is. I think it really speaks to a myopic view of the character to think that was doing a lot with him.
Right.
But I will agree that this fits in timeline-wise. Like, you can't... I mean, I don't think that it makes sense that the character we saw at the end of Return of the Jedi would be doing exactly this, but I do see it as he's much closer to that version than he is to the one in The Last Jedi. Sure. So it totally works. It works as in... that can be who the character is. Yeah. This is the legend that everybody thought I was, that led to the failure, that made everybody, you know, what he gets into about why I was Luke Skywalker and couldn't come through for everyone. So that fits there because he's not at the point in his journey. And I think in those threads it also talked about how Ahsoka is much further along in her journey, so she wouldn't take on Grogu. Whereas Luke is still early enough in. He's only had the training that he's had from Obi-Wan and Yoda that he feels like he could train another generation of Jedi, whereas Ahsoka's already experienced that that's not really the best path to the enlightenment level of Jedi or non-Jedi that she is.
And I think that if there was not a vehemently negative reaction by some people to The Last Jedi, I think that it would have been easier for me, or like a loud one, you know, that Lucasfilm has responded to in the past. It would have been easier for me to just see this as an emotional thing of like, oh my God, look at him. Like, this is between when we knew him and when like he lost his faith or whatever.
That's the question.
And it would have probably been more moving to me. And like we said in last week's episode, in a few years or a few months, I'll be able to look at it that way.
Yeah.
But in a world where Lucasfilm has gone to great lengths to like not try and isolate or alienate parts of the fandom that are insanely toxic, it was hard for me to see it as simple.
Mm-hmm. It's hard to disconnect it. I think that's kind of where the question came down for me. It's like, if, say, The Last Jedi or the sequel trilogy never happened, would this scene have happened in The Mandalorian? Would The Mandalorian, if it existed? And I guess I don't really have an answer to that question, but I think there's a high probability it would. I think there's a large contingency of fans, and there's nothing wrong with this, that don't have an opinion either direction. And I think sometimes I forget that. Like, it's not... They watch the sequel trilogy, and they could be just as content with all three of those movies as they were the original trilogies and the prequels, and they just watch it, and it's fun Star Wars, and that's part of the magic that is Star Wars. I think as kind of your fandom evolves with it, or you have a deep personal connection to it, then, of course, the decisions, they become more personal to us. So I think for a lot of fans, just seeing Luke Skywalker in the midst of a pandemic, that's got to give some people some really good feels. Like, I think there's something. Then that's kind of why I'm like, I'm stoked for this. It felt good to see Luke come in and do something nice and cool. Like, I'm all
and
for it.
And that's perfectly valid and beautiful. Like that, it is. And I'm certainly not trying to to say
No.
that it's not. You know,
No, yeah, not suggesting that, but I do understand, like you say, like on a macro level, what this could potentially indicate. Like I think I said, like this is great, but if I start seeing Luke every TV series, then we've got a problem. Like there's,
Yeah.
But I think I recapped it just by saying like a Mandalorian. First off, just read about that word in like my Star Wars reference book decades ago that Boba Fett wore Mandalorian armor. So now we have a character based on him is helping Boba Fett, who is now a good guy, hand Luke Skywalker a creature that looks like Yoda. Like the scenario that this would even be a thing on television is just wild.
It's like if you found out that the Transformers cartoon was on still. Like you were like, it's in season 35 and I didn't know.
Exactly, yeah.
And you like watched it and you were like, Starscream is a good guy now? What did I miss? Like that kind of thing.
Exactly. So I think from that perspective it's fun to see. But I agree, like it's the Venn diagram of fans, it just happens to overlap a little bit and it gives us the mixed feelings.
Listen,
Well, and
we
Mike-
have a podcast. We have to look into it.
Right?
What else are we going to do?
Why do we
Mike,
pay that research team?
To your point, Mike, that you were saying earlier about that this how it kind of fits into the narrative and doesn't have to contradict the version of Luke we saw. I mean, it's interesting to kind of think, if we assume that Luke is good to his word, and let's not assume that Grogu is part of the temple that
He's dead.
that Ben wrecks. Let's say what if the success that he has training Grogu and making Grogu into a great Jedi or Force user or a confident Force user, what if that's what gives Luke the confidence and even hubris of opening a Jedi temple? What if that contributes to his cockiness that he can train anyone? I didn't even share a language with this creature. I can of course teach my nephew how to wield the Force. Oh,
Right.
Well, look where that led. You know what I mean? Like we can actually, because I don't think this is the last we've seen of Grogu. I think he's coming back. I think probably season 3 we're gonna have a little bit of a gap. We should really get to the meat of the episode here. Like we're gonna have a gap before season 3, and so I think that's the perfect thing to do is like bring them back together with kind of a new Grogu.
So
The new Grogu.
let's get to that. But I
Grogu
want to say,
with
Chris, to go back to
attitude.
what you said real quick of Luke Skywalker coming in during this pandemic and saving us.
Yeah.
Now I'm just envisioning that scene as all of the bots are Rona bots and he's the vaccine.
There you go.
And that's what I'm going to create just like a meme video.
Yes, there you
where
go.
it labels
Yep.
him as the vaccine.
Yep.
And it'll
Yep.
be on TikTok Droids Pod. I promise. I'll get it out there.
Get it out there. Put Fauci's face on him.
Right? There you go. That would be pretty great. I don't know if I
And-
have that kind of skill.
Quickly, before we get into the meat of the episode, because I don't want to forget since we teased it in the intro and, people will lose their minds. Lego Holiday Special. It's cute.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's not really much more to get into. I suggest watching it. It's a smooth 30 minutes. It's very cute.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a very funny travel through Star Wars history, and I think they did a nice job with it.
Speaking of
The
eye
Lego
rolls,
parody.
Sam.
Yeah.
Where I rolled the moment they had Finn training after the Rise of Skywalker, referencing what happened in that film.
Yeah, I don't know if it's technically canon. I'm led to believe that it's not, but I have to say that the Lego Star Wars team has like they have a really good sense of the tone of that kind of edge of the franchise. I think that it's very funny. The Emperor specifically is very funny.
They do a good job with Sheev.
And there's there's not much to like go into. It's just like a very cute kind of montage of Star Wars moments.
I think I thought it was like movie length. I didn't know it was
No.
30 minutes. It's
like 30
hilarious.
minutes.
Yeah,
It's just like a cute little thing.
meanders through all of Star Wars. It's definitely, if you're full of eggnog on this next couple weeks and kind of loafing around, it's definitely fun to put on. Even if you're not.
No, only if you're full of eggnog.
I'm just full of eggnog right now.
That's the target audience. Children full of eggnog. Wait.
Yeah, just eggnog balloons ready to pop.
Hey, that's the title of my biography.
Sam, as you were alluding to, there might be a wait for season 3 of The Mandalorian. We're going to talk about what we thought were 10 new series announced by Disney on their Investor Day, but actually it's 11. Book of Boba Fett that we talked about will
Which is a
come
relief,
out.
because when I heard 10, I thought, that's not enough.
Yeah, no, it's never enough.
That's not
I
enough.
mean,
I was angry.
look, they've already now established this as they brought Favreau in to start things like they did for Iron Man, to set up their cinematic universe, except it's a streaming universe. And the streaming universe eventually will have all these characters come back together again, Lando and Ahsoka and the Rangers plus the Mandalorian, to one final battle that'll be the first movie released. That's all happening. That's why they did this. Anyway, Jon Favreau did an interview where he talked about the Book of Boba Fett already in production, already shooting, coming out December of 2021. Season 3 of The Mandalorian is being shot following the conclusion of production of the Book of Boba Fett, and Season 3 of The Mandalorian will follow after that. Now, my impression was like, okay, maybe that'll come out in March, especially because Disney Plus has all these announcements, but they're still pretty far off from getting many other shows out there other than WandaVision and Falcon and the Winter Soldier. They don't really have anything else that's going to be ready to go for another year or two. So they want to get Mandalorian back up and running so that they can get something else out there. And the idea is with all these series, we're going to finish 1-2 month stretch of 8 episodes or 13 episodes and then dive back into another one within another month or two after that. They want to keep you having a reason to keep that monthly subscription going. So my bet is season 3 of The Mandalorian is March of 2022. That's my thought.
Oh.
Still a while to wait.
Yeah. I think the reason to keep that subscription going for me is because I paid 3 years in advance.
Well, you've already 1 year's already down, Chris. You're getting pretty
That's
close
true,
to
yeah.
paying.
Do you feel like you haven't gotten your money's worth?
No,
Hey,
I've watched
none of us are
Godmother
playing that.
like 5 times.
I mean, it's on every day. It's on every day.
Yeah.
None of us are paying that dollar upcharge that
Yeah,
they
I
just
know.
raised the price.
Chris is always telling us about how good Godmother is.
It is pretty good.
I really
enjoyed it.
You know what I love is Earth to Ned. This has nothing to do with Star... Although they did do a Star Wars episode that Billy D. Williams was on that was really cute.
I
Earth
love
to Ned
when
is a
other
delight.
shows do. I love
Well,
when other
Earth to Ned-
shows do Star Wars episodes.
Yeah.
Are we
We should
spinning
do a
off
show on
and,
that.
and doing a Disney Plus pod? Just we talk about
I
all
could
Disney
use
Plus
that money,
content.
dude. I could use that
I mean,
money.
you're not going to be able to stop me talking about the Marvel stuff once it starts hitting.
Then
And you're not going to be able to stop me talking Earth to Ned.
It's gonna be Earth to Ryan. Stop talking about Earth to Ned.
Yeah.
no one can
so
stop me
should
from
we go through...
Mickey and the Roadster Racers. So
Should we go through... Like, do we want
yeah,
to
well,
go
here's
through... each-
let's jump into the titles. So we found out, of course, that I think let's headline it. Ahsoka is going to
Right.
be a series. That to me was the biggest announcement, even though Lando was an announcement, but we didn't get too much info about Lando, and we obviously have a little bit more firm sense of. I mean, they didn't even announce if it's going to be Donald Glover or they're going to do animated. We don't really know yet. But the Ahsoka series, Dave Filoni, I think this is, Ryan, you keep on talking about like what's the answer. To me, this seems like the thing that could be the answer. Is a live action Ahsoka series run by Dave Filoni. I get the sense that Favreau might have some sort of producer credit, but this is going to be the Filoni ship that he gets to run, which I cannot wait to
It's gonna
watch however
say-
many episodes he does.
It's going to say based on live action Ahsoka created by
John
Favreau.
I think the tone that we're kind of searching for, and like you just said, Ryan, the kind of one of the answers we're looking for. I think this is going to line up with more of that kind of progress vision of where the characters can go than I think than the other shows. I think this is going to be the one that is going to fill that nice void.
Isn't it so funny? We're not setting the bar real high. Like, Ahsoka
Right.
is only a 15-year-old character.
right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah, I'm
That's
excited
crazy.
about this. Obviously, we've discussed the potential issues with Rosario Dawson, the allegations with her, but, we've already discussed that. But I think that I'm hoping that Dave Filoni runs this. I'm hoping that it's a move forward. With all of these series, I'm saying this is a blanket. If I hear anybody talk about how Star Wars was actually a Western, I'm going to freak out.
They will, Ryan. They
And
will.
it's not that it's not. It's not, but it's not that it's not. It's that it has the aesthetic of a Western and some of the genre elements of a Western sometimes, but people like to latch on to this thing, and then we're going to see like there's 10 or 11 new series. If 6 of them are actually Westerns, the way The Mandalorian was actually a Western, you can't think that that's an original idea anymore.
You know what? I think it's a comedy.
Ahsoka probably will be like a samurai thing, and that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Also,
just
like-
don't want to see anyone else make another Star Wars Western.
I feel like George Lucas also had involvement in the creation of Ahsoka as well. So, like, maybe he'll just, like, send Filoni an email every now and then.
Maybe he'll direct an episode.
Yeah.
Oh my god!
I would love that. I want to see him get back in the
I know.
chair, baby.
Give us the weird... Let's see those wills, the creatures.
Oh my god,
They
right?
did say that they did. I mean, Dave Filoni is running this. Like that was something that Jon Favreau said on Good Morning America. He confirmed that it's Dave's show and that he's writing the episodes now. So I think like we're definitely in good hands. I can't see Filoni being comfortable handing that character to someone. I mean, like Ahsoka has been so richly developed over so many years by all these animated series that he helmed. I mean, she's one of the best characters in Star Wars. Like it's
yeah, without a doubt.
It's absolutely. I'm more excited about this than I think than any of the films, than any of the other series, and it's also the one that like. We do have the best sort of baseline of like what to expect because we saw an episode with her and it was maybe one of the most incongruous episodes in this season, but it was also my favorite episode of this season. So, and of the series.
It was my favorite episode of television this year, aside from episode 4 of Earth to Ned.
I think it's going to be.
I'll take episode 8 of Ted Lasso, but all right.
I'm thrilled. I'm excited. I'm also reading the novel Ahsoka that they released because it was free for Prime members on my Kindle. So I'll have another review shortly, and
Wow.
I'll tell you what, it's a lot better than Master and Apprentice. I'm liking it.
That's awesome.
Well, I think
Moving on.
Well, there's more.
Yeah.
There's obviously just the excitement around that series, but we'll kind of be approaching that as one of the probably ones more likely to be seen sooner rather than later. I guess the one thing I thought is, do you think that he kind of had a we're getting the band to get back together moment for Filoni, like the crew that he had working with him on Clone Wars and Rebels, and those who've worked with him very closely on the character, like, hey, big time, we're going to live action.
Yeah.
Come on, you're coming back.
I wonder...
Yeah, I mean, I'm not putting this on you. I think that this is kind of a ubiquitous feeling. I take issue with the fact that like people see it as you graduate to live action.
Fair enough. I
When
was
think
framing
he
it
was
that
doing,
way.
No. But I do think because people keep talking about how Jon Favreau like took him under his wing, and it's like this dude's been telling Star Wars stories for over a decade.
Yeah.
From George Lucas.
Yeah, so it's like I always think it's like strangely condescending that it's like Favreau taught him how to do live action. Granted, I understand that like his season 1 episode wasn't so greatly directed, but I don't really put that on him. They were finding the show. But I think that it's like I'm excited that they're doing a live action version, but he's been telling astounding Star Wars stories for over a decade with an amazing team in animation. So it's like I hope that we can get away from that kind of like rhetoric about it. Like it's like now he's just taking into a different medium, and that's exciting.
Ryan, this pod does not hate animation of any form. We're not, the Watch of the Ringer network that ignores all animation storytelling. We love animation.
Or someone over there.
No, they
doesn't like
both hate animation.
Wow.
I love that show. Those guys are great. And, we're not throwing down any kind of war over animation between us and the Watch.
Yeah,
I don't
do
want
like
to start a
Greenwald and
Twitter
Chris
war.
Ryan.
I mean, come at us.
Yeah, I'd love to start a feud with the Watch. I'd love that publicity.
I mean, that's what I'm going for, Ryan.
Yeah,
I
do really like that podcast, and I think those guys are smart and cool, and I'm sure that they need to hear that from us. But
But they should watch some animation.
yeah, but come at us, Greenwald.
Hey,
I'll
he's
fight you
very
in
close
the
with
Briar
Rosario.
Patch.
Yeah.
Is that the name of that show? Briar
Yep.
Patch? Yeah.
Yep.
I wonder how many of these ideas early on were pitched like at the acquisition, and then they were kind of like, no, we know what we're doing, and then now they're coming back to them to be like,
They were like, wait.
wait a second, you said something the first week we met.
Wait, but can we put Luke in it? Is Luke around for this?
Is it possible? Well, speaking
So
of...
series number 2.
I say a time where Luke is available. The Cassian Andor series, we actually saw a behind-the-scenes clip of them in production. Diego Luna is over the moon, very excited about what he's doing. He's talking about the production being just as big as it was for Rogue One, that it feels like a movie set. And, they're probably doing things on the volume. And what have they changed the name? It's like Stagecraft and the volume now. They're calling it both.
Yeah, they're branding it.
Either way, I'm excited for this. I think we've belabored on this podcast that we're not all thrilled about what Tony Gilroy writing and leading this. That's the truth.
Well, I mean, I love Rogue One, and I've historically liked a lot of his work. He just sounds like a blowhard.
Yeah. Well, and we'll judge it on the work and leave all the other stories out of it. Like you said, Sam, if there's a way for us to just focus on the story and leave the rest of it behind, I'm not very good at that. I know I'm not. So
as far as I know, he's not like a monstrous person. He just sounds like he's kind of like an a-hole. So I could leave that alone.
The series, I feel, it's just going to be kind of more like missions. Of what
I feel like this will be like a bonus series where I'm like, this is cool.
It's always a bummer, though, to have a show or a prequel when you know the net result.
Yeah, sure.
Well, true.
But I just really hope that Luke shows up.
That's the challenge with a lot of these series and a lot of all the stuff they're doing with Star Wars is that there is this fear of, and honestly, I'll say it's what they're doing with Star Trek too, is that like there's a fear of moving things forward. Do you know what I mean? And it's what made like Picard interesting was that they actually took the story like into like a future beyond what we'd ever seen in the series yet. And so, yeah, I'm with you that it's like, okay, well, we kind of know where this has to end up. What I'm excited about, though, is that this sounds like, if the original trilogy, if that rebellion and war was World War II, this is like the behind enemy lines spy craft happening in, in France and Germany, early in the war. Yeah. And that sounds awesome to me. Like, give me like clandestine meetings. Give me like you have to get this data stick across whatever enemy line to a different planet and pass the blockade and all this stuff. Like that sounds awesome. I love it.
There's a kid on Tatooine. He's waiting for your data
no.
stick.
Oh no!
I mean, with that in mind, they haven't been able to pull the trigger, so to speak, in having anything during the Disney era not have a Jedi or a lightsaber wielding individual appear. I say it as that Solo had Maul at the end. They obviously threw in Vader for the hallway scene in Rogue One. Mm-hmm. They want to do these stories where they're like, well, we're not going to have the Force in this one. We're not going to have a Jedi come in, and we keep on going there. Not just Skywalkerness, but
right.
like I think they know that people who are the more average or the more, I don't know what, general populace who are into Star Wars, if they're like, where's the lightsabers? What's going on? Like, I got to see a hallway and I got to see a lightsaber. Why? That's a new part of this that has only happened in the last 5 years, that now hallways are a big part of what Star Wars are. And
always with proper cover.
Do you think that they will find in any of these series, Rangers, which technically shouldn't have Jedi either, are we going to see a series that doesn't have a Jedi? And I guess you can never say that because they'll go multiple years and they could always get to a Jedi in season 5. I guess they'll cross over no matter what. So I'm probably answering my own question there.
Yeah, the answer is no.
I think we're always going to see a lightsaber or a box or something.
Which is a bummer because although I do like the hallway scene in Rogue One, I think it's cool. I think that like Chirrut Imwe especially was one of the most interesting introductions of a non-Jedi Force sensitive character, and I thought that was great.
Yeah.
So I would love to see more things like that.
I wonder. Yeah. And another question I have about all these series, and we can kind of hint on it when we're going through, but are they mapping these to different like time eras in our world? So like, is the Ahsoka series going to be kind of the more modern one, whereas this Cassian Andor will kind of look like the 1980s Star Wars, and then to kind of go further with like the eventual Boba Fett series, is that going to be kind of like the 90s series?
It's a good question.
I mean, I think it will look. I think it will look more 90s with Robert Rodriguez behind it, but I don't
is that
think that's the
intentional
intent. No.
Oh, no, I don't know, because I mean, they kind of made like Rogue One that kind of like throwback look when they made it.
I can tell you that I think the Boba Fett series will definitely be like have like 90s style misogyny in it for sure.
Oh boy. Be careful, Fennec Shand.
What's next on the docket?
Well, before we leave it, though, I am very excited, and I feel like we missed this a bit in The Mandalorian because they've only touched on it, is having a droid. They had it with IG-11. They had it with the brief droid of Richard Ayoade. It was part of that mission in Chapter 6. I want the droid comic relief, and so for Andor to have K2SO back, Alan
Is he
Tudyk returning
confirmed?
to the role. Oh, yeah. Confirmed.
That's great.
He was
That's great.
he was there at that
perfect.
announcement. Both Alan Tudyk and Diego Luna came out on stage. So that's back. K2SO is back,
Yeah,
and I
that's
love
awesome.
K2.
Wow,
K2 is a
me too.
great, great character.
Yeah,
So
that's phenomenal. You're right. We haven't had like a good droid.
I mean, we did in
Alan Tudyk
season
doesn't
1.
get enough credit for like the mocap work he's done.
Yeah.
He's done. Well, we know he's done a lot of voice work. He did. What was the other mocap besides K2SO?
iRobot.
Oh, that's right. I do love iRobot.
I did not murder him.
But then let's move on to Obi-Wan series. I think we know this well. There's not really anything new there other than what we heard they're shooting beginning in March.
Well, and
not
Hayden's in it.
And Hayden's confirmed.
Yeah. That's the big
There's not anything
reveal.
new, guys. That's not anything new. I don't know what you're talking about. We knew that.
I mean, we always assumed it. They're filming it in Boston in the UK, just to be clear.
They've moved the city of Boston to the UK
I don't know how.
because they found out that if you move the city to the UK, you get a huge tax incentive.
Is it New Boston?
I mean, I forgot the biggest piece of news, but let's talk for 20 minutes about the biggest piece of news from this.
Wait,
Are you
Hayden
talking about
news.
Hayden? Yeah.
Yeah.
The thing I
Yeah.
forgot.
Oh,
It's great. Like,
Yeah.
I'm happy for him because look, the guy got a real. I feel like the guy got a real bum rap during the prequel release. I think there's been a writ large reevaluation of the prequels, and I think Ryan has led that charge on this, like among the three of us in a big
Yeah.
way.
and some would say in general.
I would say in America.
Some would say,
Yeah.
and some would say,
he
He's
will,
not the
be,
world.
he will be
But-
remembered as one of the preeminent prequelists in our
but like,
culture.
this is both. I think. Okay, I don't necessarily think that he has to redeem anything, but it presents an opportunity to redeem that performance if you're someone who feels it needs to be, but also it provides an opportunity to revisit the performance, which a lot of fans have come to love. So
There's
yeah.
an entire generation of people that like have no issue.
Also-
like people
also-
younger than us that like that's their Star Wars and like
That's
there's
their
no
Vader.
qualification about it. You know what
And
I
also,
mean?
like, what's the what greater story could you tell than revisiting Obi-Wan's greatest failure? How he
Yeah.
failed his pupil,
Yeah.
and what else would be tormenting him in like the 17 years while Luke grows up? Like
Right.
all he's thinking about is Anakin because
Yeah,
Anakin
that's-
went and destroyed the galaxy.
It's very cool, and it's also like the way that Revenge of the Sith kind of leaves off is like the Jedi just learned this new skill to talk to Force Ghost, and like there's still like knowledge that they're learning, and I think that's going to be fun to like see new Jedi skills. We'll see, and then also like maybe they'll answer questions like, what is Vader like? How does he eat? Like, what does he do? Is he ever just watching TV? What
I
like
hope we get some of that like like those comic book covers of like helmet off Vader,
Maybe we'll
If
get,
Yeah.
I really want that, Ryan, and I'm also thinking like we'll probably get some of whatever Castle Vader on Mustafar.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
Oh
we'll
yeah,
get-
baby.
That,
Oh, yeah, we
that's a
get
cool
some
location
snow.
that they
I'm
can build
pointing
in
to the
Hawaii.
fences too. I'm telling you, Liam Neeson's going to be in this show.
Oh my god! I hope.
I was going to mention that I do think every one of these shows is going to have some kind of set piece moment or set piece reveal, like around it, for better or for worse. But Liam Neeson one would be phenomenal. I don't know who else you would get. Sheev, young Sheev.
Oh, actually, Ian McDermott would probably be in it.
Yeah.
Right,
Oh, I know
yeah.
who. C-3PO.
Oh, thank God.
I've got a hot and fresh about this for you.
Ooh.
Chris, are we allowed to all just take it now? Like, we can all say hot and fresh now? Or
It's
should
in
I
the
stop
public
that?
domain now. Email us hotandfresh@hotandfresh.org. Droidspod at hotandfresh.
We don't recommend going to hotandfresh.org. We don't know what's there.
No, I don't know what that is.
Well, in all seriousness, with this hot and fresh I'm going to bring to the table, I think they are going to have a Force connection a la Kylo and Rey from The Last Jedi for Obi-Wan and Anakin.
I think that's great. I think
Oh,
it's
a
great.
dyad.
Lovely.
I don't.
Lovely.
Well, I mean, like not even necessarily a dyad.
Yeah.
I think it's just
No,
more
no,
that they
Mike,
can
that's what it
communicate.
was called. As Tross taught us, it was called They Are a Dyad in the
Swear to God,
Force.
if they take anything from The Last Jedi in a stupid movie, I'm going to be so mad.
But it's what do they call it? At one point, it was like Force time, instead of
Yeah,
FaceTime. I think it
Yeah.
would be that because it was such an
Yeah,
interesting
you're
thing in
right.
Last Jedi. But for that's how you have Hayden be in this series in
Yes.
a way that is somewhat regular.
Oh, wow.
Because otherwise, like they can't meet,
Oh,
they
man.
can't battle often.
Could you imagine if they
There's also
didn't-
something so compelling about, and I don't know who else has done this before in Star Wars, but there's something so compelling about two enemies who are lonely finding solace in the company of each other. It'd be,
Yeah.
man, that'd be such a compelling
that?
thing for
could
someone
do
to
that?
do.
That's it's pretty
That feels like it'd be really emotionally resonant, and like it would probably
No,
make
no.
for one of the best movies in the saga.
okay. That was the driver of Lando's ship in The Rise of Skywalker.
Do you think that there's enough goodwill for some of the people who were the anti-prequel side of this, some of the people who are against Hayden in general? Like, do you think that they are seeing this as like, all right, we're going to give the one for this group, one for that group, which I think we've talked about in the past? Because there are so many people who vehemently don't like Hayden Christensen as Anakin Skywalker. And I will say I'm not a fan of his performance. I don't dislike him. And I'm very excited for him to come back and have different direction, Deborah Chow, and different writing. Like I want to, because I enjoy him in Shattered Glass. I think he's actually a pretty solid actor.
He's
solid
He's
movie.
very capable. I mean, like
Life
it's
is a house.
it's it's not like, and listen, George Lucas has a very specific acting aesthetic that he has his actors do. And so it's like you can't really, if you don't like that style of acting, it's not their fault.
The acting
and
is
it's
like a
also
prop
not
in
like
the
a
movie.
mistake.
Yeah.
It's just like his taste, and you may not like it.
Yeah.
But it's not like he doesn't know what he's doing. So, I think Hayden has gotten a lot of goodwill based on, Star Wars Celebration, the way that he's been welcomed
Yeah.
there and stuff like that. And it's like the people who can't let go that they didn't like his performance, like,
But isn't that
whatever.
audience?
Get a new act. You know what I mean? It's just like,
Isn't it that group that you were talking about? Is that it's the legacy fans from the original trilogy who are likely in their 50s who didn't like anything new? And I'm not saying I wouldn't care about them if it didn't feel like there were things being catered to them right now.
sure. But this maybe gives me hope that it's not
Yeah.
all being catered to.
Yeah,
them.
I mean, I don't
Yeah,
think they'd
sure.
have him back if it was that big a deal. Like, I think I think this is going to be great. I think it also is going to fill in some gaps for my brain a little bit. Because just like I love the prequels, love the original trilogy, it's just that interconnection sometimes is like it's not quite there. I think it clicked for me when like Han Solo says like it's a hokey religion, and we kind of now gives new context to Obi-Wan to be like, you have no idea, man. So like I don't mind if they fill in more of those little gaps in between.
Okay, well, let's move on to Rangers. Rangers of the New Republic, which seems to be based off of, I assume Dave Filoni is taking on a leading role like we talked about before. He's going to actually be an actor as well in this series because the only Rangers we've seen are him, Rick Famuyiwa, Deborah Chow, and the guy from Kim's Convenience. Those are the only ones we've known so far. Oh, I guess, and Cara Dune. Oof.
Yeah,
She's a marshal. She's a marshal. Is she a ranger also?
Yeah.
I heard it's
She's
gonna
a marshal. So is this a sequel, a backdoor sequel of the Fugitives of the Old Republic? That's a fugitive joke.
I'm in.
That's a
I'm
Tommy
in
Lee
for,
Jones joke.
I'm in for
I
a
don't
U.S. Marshals
care,
in space.
Ryan. I don't care.
Oh my god! I made that reference when I was watching the season 5 episode of Clone Wars. Mike, I'll keep spoilers, but there's a scene where they're in a tunnel leading out to a giant
Yep.
thing, and someone has to
Yep.
jump, and I said, "I don't care." My wife didn't get it.
Ryan, I that we have that shared experience, like in full, that exact experience. That is
what
exactly
were you doing watching Clone Wars with my wife?
There it is. That's...
So Rangers of the Old Republic, or the New Republic. This is the one I have almost no interest in, but I'll watch it every week religiously.
I think it's going to be like Letterkenny. No, I'm just kidding.
At this point, I'd say this is probably this is one of my ones of lower interest, but I do think it has all the potential to be really great. It has the potential to suck me in as all right, this will be the more rebellion focused one, and pilots. Maybe there's some pilot stuff. I guess maybe
we'll see some Oliphant in there too, which I know you guys kind of had mixed reaction on his appearance, but he's good.
Well, do we think they're going to choose a lead? Because I don't know that they can just have a new cameo every week and just make that the way the show works.
Why not? That's what they did with The Mandalorian.
Yeah, but they had it based on there was still a main story there for you to work off of.
Yeah, no, I know. I don't know. I mean, I think this one feels perhaps the most kind of mysterious. There's the least to go on. We don't know who's involved. It's hard to be.
I think Acolyte might challenge you there.
I think
no. See that one
Bill Burr is definitely going to be in that series. Almost 100% guaranteed.
Yeah,
he might even be the lead.
I know a guy. It's going to be one of those.
Yeah.
Maybe the first episode will be them just gathering up everyone who had a cameo in The Mandalorian, the beginning of D2.
Yeah, exactly. Just like I was talking about with Filoni, getting everybody back for the Ahsoka, except it was the writers. This will be any
Quack
chance
Attack is back, Jack.
Any chance that they remove Cara Dune from this?
Well, if she keeps tweeting, maybe.
But that's my thought. Is what point do you cross a line where they're okay, we've had enough here?
Look, I think it gets tricky because we live in an age where actors and artists are very outspoken politically on their social channels, and particularly Disney artists and folks who've been in Marvel and Star Wars movies have been active and outspoken about on a very progressive side of things. So I do wonder from a if we start thinking from a legal standpoint of what can they do, because when does it become a double standard? Because it's she's she's kind of doing the same thing but from the other side. Now, I'm not saying that they're equal sides or that the sides are equally valid. I'm definitely not saying that, but I'm saying from a standpoint of I don't think they'll fire her, basically. Will they kill her off or write her out of the show? That gets into nuance. I don't understand, how easy that is to do with people who are, under contract and working with you.
Yeah, I think where the line starts to get crossed, and Sam, I'm not attacking you on this. I know that you're not. I know you're not saying good people on both sides kind of thing, but I think it's that I think where they would have a case if they wanted to fire her, which I think they should, is that she's spreading misinformation that's endangering people's lives.
Yep.
That is, I think that is completely
as opposed
valid
to Chris
true.
Evans being hey, racism is bad. She's being don't wear a mask. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No,
which it looms to a larger conversation to me is when the pandemic's over, I mean, clearly government-wise, we're just going to let anybody do what they want. But are we just all moving on from those who willfully put other people in danger?
Or will
that's
there
just
be
cool.
a reckoning? Well, based on the fact that Mitch McConnell just got a vaccine,
yeah.
It seems like there probably won't be a reckoning, unfortunately.
Nope.
No, there won't be a reckoning.
I don't know how many baseball fans are out there, but the Los Angeles Dodgers and Justin Turner, that guy shouldn't be allowed to play baseball or be in public again.
Is he the guy with he tested positive in the seventh inning stretch?
Yep, and went out and celebrated with all his teammates without a mask, including next to his manager who had recovered from cancer. Just didn't care.
Here's our weekly reminder: wear your masks, everybody.
Wear a mask.
Stay safe out there.
This is the
way.
way.
Be like Hayden, wear a mask.
Be like Hayden, wear a mask.
All right,
be like Hayden, wear a mask, and don't see anybody for a few years.
There you go. Or maybe make one movie in Canada called Little Italy.
Let's stick with the Let's stick with what will be likely live action. And we talked a little bit about Lando, but let's go to Acolyte before we circle back to Lando. This is the Leslie Headland series.
So excited about this.
I think this is the one I'm most excited about. Like, Ahsoka's more like a sure shot to me. Like, I'm like, that'll be awesome. But this one's more of like a question mark that I think will be great.
And we've talked about her before because we had this news that she was joining. She was the creator of Russian Doll. Russian Doll was a phenomenal series on Netflix. If you go and take a look at that, and you know, she has been this devout Star Wars fan. Her life is what it seems to be in the interviews. She doesn't care. I think the one thing that was a quote that we've talked about before, she doesn't have a favorite Star Wars. She just loves Star Wars and wants to be in Star Wars. You can't pick a part of Star Wars for her. It's just about Star Wars, which is amazing. That's what you want to hear from somebody who's creating a show and running a show. But this takes place at the end of the High Republic. It's a mystery thriller. And Chris, I'm sure those ears perk up some of the rumors, and this is not based on anything. Maybe it's a cosmic book news. Who knows? Could this be Darth Plagueis and Sheev?
Oh, man. Sheev and Plagueis together at last. I feel like, I mean, so I looked up the word acolyte, and it's like I lost the definition, but it's it's like a believer or a religious follower. So my guess is
if only
this
we
might
could
be
find that website again. A person assisting the celebrant in a religious service or procession.
yes.
It's like a disciple of some sort.
Yes, exactly. And I think this era, especially if we're reading this right, between the High Republic and the Old Republic, or the New Republic. The Republic is kind of ripe for this dark side, light side battling of two teams of apprentices.
What apprentices? What is considered the High Republic? So, like, is the High Republic up until the fall of the Republic?
So what I just read was it is 100 years before the Phantom Menace.
Oh, okay. So the High Republic is when, like, I see. Before there was, like, any seemingly, quote unquote, any turmoil.
Essentially.
Right, okay.
We don't know that much because we're 2 weeks away as we record this at the end of December 22nd, when we're recording this episode. 2 weeks from now, I believe the premiere first novel of the High Republic era is available, which, without a lot of new Star Wars for a while, and, you know, Sam, you've gone down the road of the books. I'm diving head first into this book.
I'm checking it out,
I'm getting on board. Couldn't squeeze it in before the holiday.
Yeah, you know.
Well, they delayed it a little bit. I think.
That's right. Yeah,
they're freaking. But
righteous.
Yeah, I mean, there's comics. There's a few novels coming out.
Well, they didn't want to interrupt Mando Mondays.
No, that's true as well.
So for me, this is when we talk about like how, you know, someone's good. Like I said, like Favreau's fine, but he's not the answer. I think to me, like, but not only specifically Leslie Headland. I think she's like tremendously talented. Like she started as like this kind of like underground playwright in New York. She did a thing called Bachelorette, which turned into a movie, and then she made another movie that's very good called Sleeping with Other People, and then Russian Doll, which is insanely interesting. Like, and she happens to also be a Star Wars fan who wants to tell a Star Wars story. Like, to me, I'm like, this is the answer.
Well, that's what we thought about with Rian Johnson, is that along those lines, like, keep on finding these phenomenal filmmakers or storytellers and give them a Star Wars.
Yeah, like, stop finding people who have made things that are like Star Wars.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
I mean, I don't think anybody needs to see, you know, the Guardians of the Galaxy version of Star Wars, because we know what that is, Star Wars.
Also, it's like the snake eating its own tail. Yeah, it's like...
There's diminishing returns on that.
Yeah, it's like... So, to me, that's why this is one of the most exciting new series. Because I genuinely don't even know what it is.
I mean, it could be a dark side story, too, which it would be interesting.
I mean, the name Acolyte is very haunting.
Yeah, the lettering and everything of it does kind of have a menacing tone.
It reminds me of a certain Ron Howard film with Paul Bettany as a acolyte type character. You know, anybody familiar with Ron Howard?
Parenthood?
The Grinch, another grotesque display.
I was thinking about the Da Vinci Code.
Silas certainly is an
true.
acolyte of sorts.
Yeah,
I mean, didn't
the first of the Robert Langdon saga.
Hanks.
Sorry, did we read the I mean, it is about the emergence of dark side powers during the High Republic era.
That's what I said.
Yeah,
no,
so
I didn't say.
Oh, okay. I was
that is what it's about.
What I had was mystery thriller, because finding the exact summary it's not on StarWars.com. oddly enough.
The Acolyte is a mystery thriller that will take the audience into a galaxy of shadowy secrets and emerging dark side powers in the final days of the High Republic era. So
Which is, I think, where Darth Plagueis came from.
Very cool. So that's kind of neat that we get to see the ending
rad.
Before the rest of the High Republic, or maybe it'll tie in with the books, but I think that's cool. Like, they already gave the High Republic an ending, which is awesome. There's a goal.
Guys, I think, unfortunately, I hear my baby calling. And so I've got to bounce before we go through the rest. I know you guys are more than capable of handling it, so I'm very excited to hear your thoughts on the rest of the slate. But I got to bounce.
So glad that we could have you here for this convo, though.
Sam, and if this is it for the year, Sam, it's been a great Droids year.
Hey,
It's a good thing you showed for this one, because this was strike 3.
Oh,
yeah,
boy.
This was it. Oh, wait, no, you're still off the pod, but
look,
next
Mary,
year, audition
beware of
contest.
any X-Wings that approach your domicile. They will take your child.
Merry Droids Miss, happy Life Day to the three of you especially, and to all our listeners also especially. And, I'll see you guys maybe in 2021.
Bye, buddy.
We can all hope.
Bye-bye.
All right, let's move on from the Acolyte. And we're going to move into, I think, my impression was that this Lando series is going to be live action. They did not mention whether Donald Glover would return, but this is going to be helmed by the director of Dear White People and Bad Hair, Justin Simeon, which is an exciting choice because I think that's, you kind of felt like Lando was a character that needed a black voice to write and direct the show or direct a movie or any standalone series about him. And now they've actually done that. So this seems a little bit more in line with what we would have hoped. And I just feels like we've all wanted a Lando series. The Calrissian Chronicles, we've joked about it. Why not make this the case? And there's not much really known at all about this. I just hope it's live action, and I hope it's Donald Glover. I don't know if they can get him. He's a little bit in high demand, but
I think they'd be foolish not to.
Yeah.
I think they'd be
he
foolish
still
to go
wants to
forward
do
without
it.
him. And Justin Simeon's great. So this is awesome news. I think it'll be a
Kathleen
blast.
Kennedy has said during the Solo premiere, and I know things were different, but she's like, Lando will return. So let's see if she...
I'm stoked.
Well, you would think that if they announce this, they already know
Yeah.
he's like a 90% yes or a soft yes or
It
something.
could be dotting I's, crossing T's at this point.
And then if it doesn't work out, they either get rid of it or be like, well, we meant it to be an animated thing all along.
Yeah.
Well, so then speaking of the other animated shows, we dive
Lando,
into, or
question
actually,
mark?
we haven't talked enough about Book of Boba Fett. Book of Boba Fett, not part of the original list, but that clearly is live action. They're shooting it already. I feel like I'm sometimes being a little crazy because I talked to you guys about this and I feel like I put it out on the internet, but The Mandalorian is the Boba Fett show. It literally is the same character. What are we doing?
I think it stirred up some Boba Fett want. I feel like the Mandalorian. I think there's probably people that are like, I want Boba Fett and I don't want the Mandalorian, or vice versa.
I don't know. I don't get it. I thought we scratched that itch. I thought that's what we were doing.
Yeah, I don't know. It's I'm interested to see what it will be. I have no idea what it could be.
I think they could have kept Bib Fortuna around, to be honest.
maybe he's not dead. Hey, maybe it's a comedy and he'll like show up and he'll be like, that really hurt. Like,
what a Willy Wonka, yes.
I have no idea.
We didn't talk, Chris, you and I didn't talk about the fact that he says McClunky in that post-credit scene.
Does he?
Yeah.
I did not know that. Oh, McClunky.
That's funny.
That's hilarious.
But what do they do with this that's different? I mean, I think,
no
Chris,
idea.
you've talked about it as a crime syndicate show.
Yeah, I mean, I think the later seasons of the Clone Wars, and part of Solo's reasoning for having Maul in there, is that they kind of have this underworld story, which I think they've constantly been trying to tease out in Star Wars, and they did it even as recent as The Force Awakens, kind of with the mob organizations that either run spice mines and all that stuff. So the seedy underworld. So I'm wondering if this is going to be the version of Star Wars underworld that just kind of going by the name Boba Fett, where we're going to see all these scoundrels. I mean, they're setting it presumably in this time period in between. So, I mean, will we understand why Kanja Club wants all these Rathtars? Is that what's going to happen? Are we going to get it?
It's the answer we've all been waiting for.
Right.
Brian, you're noticeably quiet on this one. Little excitement about it. Not much for you.
Yeah, it'll be fine. Whatever. I'm not enthusiastic about Robert Rodriguez as a director. I'm not I like Boba Fett, but like he's not like one of my. Even as a kid, I was never like way into Boba Fett. You know, so it's just like in a world where there's 11 new series, they're not all gonna really tickle my pickle. So I don't have to beep that.
I don't even know
it's
that
fine.
means.
Like I'll watch it and I hope it's cool. I like Ming-Na Wen a lot, and that armor's cool. But I hope it's a cool crime syndicate show.
I couldn't figure out.
But all crime syndicate shows really are westerns, aren't they?
I couldn't figure out what he's missing. He needs the cape.
Yeah.
I think that'll do some wonders for
Yeah.
the suit.
So yeah, I think I'll watch it, of course. But whatever.
There's just an asterisk in this podcast. We'll watch it,
Yeah.
of course.
But look at where we are now. We're like, well, it's nice to have another Star Wars series. Whereas if this was the only one, we'd be eating it up. It's weird to be in this place where there's so much that we can almost be like, well, if that one doesn't work, oh well.
Exactly.
It's a good place to
we
be.
could be.
Yeah, it is.
Pretty good, yeah.
Well, Bad Batch, I think, is the highlight of the animated ones that we know coming up. I wonder how Filoni's stretching himself out here. Like, is he able to? Is he having someone else run Bad Batch?
Yeah, I don't know if he's running this show.
Yeah.
Because I have to think he needs to put a lot of focus on what he's doing with Ahsoka. Not only for what he wants to bring to that character live action, but just there's a lot more. I don't want to diminish it again like I did before. So
even in the Clone Wars series, though, there is kind of arcs that focus solely on the soldiers and things like that. So I feel like there's a whole kind of wing of Clone Wars of these types of episodes, and I often wonder how many just bank stories they had. Like, because there's just an infinite amount of just cool things you can show in that show. So I wonder.
And
if
the trailer was great.
Yeah, trailer got me psyched. I wasn't like hyped on it when I heard they were doing that, just because some of the stuff I'm not like super into. But after watching that trailer, I'm like, oh, this is great. Yeah,
there were monsters and stuff. I was way in.
So
Ming-Na Wen has a lot to do. She is in Book of Boba Fett, and she's going to be a character in the Bad Batch, which is pretty exciting. That she's going to get
as Fennec.
As Fennec, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that character is kind of getting stretched into different places, which we thought like, wow, it's too bad it's just a one episode cameo in one of the weaker episodes of The Mandalorian season 1, and here she is, and thankfully she'll get a lot more. And that was Boba Fett in the Spurs, which they never showed in Spurs again,
I
did
was
they?
just going to ask that exact question. Was it Boba Fett in the Spurs?
Which Spurs? Come on.
Wow.
All right. Well, from there, Star Wars Visions, which will be an anime Star Wars series, more like anime individual episodes. They're not going to all tie together.
Great.
I'm very excited about it. I love the idea of it. Why not stretch into different mediums and different forums and do different things with Star Wars? That's a great idea.
It's great.
I feel like every 5 years, someone makes like an anime version of a scene from Star Wars. Let's put a actual. Those things are awesome.
Let's license it.
Let's license it. Let's throw it on TV. Exactly.
I think it'll be cool.
Yeah.
Well, I love the idea that they did with Star Wars Galaxy of Adventures for kids, where they did those short clips. I don't love that it potentially is the first exposure to a key plot point in some of the overall story of Star Wars, but they need to find ways to interest a group of kids who have a shorter and shorter attention span. So if they have a 90-second clip that is animated that can get them interested in something else, or in this case, what sounds like 20-minute episodes that might tell individual stories that could be done, again, by unique visions of artists from different parts of the world who typically don't touch Star Wars, that could be really exciting.
I'm excited about it.
And finally, we saved the best for last. We saved what our namesake is all about, a droid story. Great opportunity for Anthony Daniels to come back into the fold for many, many more
Just
Star Wars
when
series.
you thought he was out, they pull him right back in.
We don't know much about this other than it will be some little adventures of droids, likely R2 and C-3PO, and why not? Why not give something again directed towards kids? It's great.
There's so much like goodwill with those two characters. Also, like I felt like crazy that we didn't mention we were so obsessed with Luke. We didn't even mention that R2 was in that episode of Mandalorian.
Well, it was funny. I think there's been theories. It's like R2 probably already knows Grogu.
Yeah, R2 knows everyone.
Yeah. R2 knows everyone, and his memory has not been wiped.
Never been wiped.
Yeah,
you can't wipe it.
We'll see that. We'll see that in the Obi-Wan series.
Is there any series? All right, real quick. I know we've been. This is a long podcast. We've talked about a lot. Real quick. Tell me one other series you want to see because you know they're going to do another block of 5 to 10 in the next 2 years that they announce.
Great question.
Oh my god.
And more so legit series, not necessarily just a joke we want to tell.
No, yeah.
Yeah, this is a tough one. I mean, we've covered so much ground. I think for me, I'm going to go into the sequel trilogy, and I would like to see some Rey stories, even if that is post T-Ross or post or pre-T, like maybe like her growing up, which I know could be a depressing story, but I'd like to see some more, or even let's get Ben in there, and let's do a kind of the tale of those two people there. I think that would be fun. We haven't gotten anything from that era, so I think we can build it out a little.
I'd like to see a Legends show where they like do like other world stories the way they are kind of with the Marvel shows, where they like animated versions of extended universe stories.
Very cool.
That are not necessarily canon anymore, but like 30 to 40 minute kind of things that take EU stories and animate them. I think that'd be fun.
My choice would be a fully animatronic lead in a series of a creature. I mean, like Grogu on its own was great, and it was a lead character. But I'm thinking, sequel era, original trilogy, whatever it would be. Let's get a Trandoshan as a lead. Let's get a Mon Calamari as a lead.
A Yoda series.
Maybe a Yoda series. I just want to see. I want to see them go all in because I think at times it's been great that they have done that and done it well enough with Frog Lady, with Grogu, where they've been able to bring that about. What the Quarren as well. I just think it'd be really cool if they are like, we're going to do an entire series. We've already shown that we can bring a lot of emotion to a faceless character, so we can have a lot more emotion in an animatronic of some creature. I guess we're sort of getting that not with an animatronic, but we're going to get a different species with the Ahsoka series as a lead, which is a different kind of thing. But I'd love to see them try to do that.
If you're into animatronics and puppetry, may I point you in the direction of Earth to Ned?
Well, and then also...
Get Ned in there.
The crew from the Dark Crystal isn't up to anything right now.
Yeah.
Oh my god, yeah.
That's kind of where mine
get the Henson Company involved.
Let's
right?
get one of those going.
I think that could be exciting.
Can I give you my goof answer?
Yeah.
Straight on Minions parody of all the movies. Come on. Please.
Would love it. I'd love it.
Love it.
Chris, that's a brilliant idea.
Yeah.
It's just too bad they're not synergized businesses.
Like they'll figure it out.
I almost forgot other huge news. We've been talking for a long time, guys, so maybe we save this for another pod, but Rogue Squadron, Patty Jenkins, Taika Waititi.
Yeah, we'll talk. We should talk about the movies on a different thing, because there's a lot to talk about there.
There is, and that's very exciting that they've confirmed them. I have thoughts already, but we'll get to that in another pod. So much fun to talk about this with you fine fellows and Sam as well. Enjoy the Life Day. Enjoy holidays. We'll be back in the new year talking more Star Wars, talking about the High Republic. We've got a lot to read. Are we doing chapter by chapter, guys, or are we going to how are we breaking this down?
The speed we have to go.
I say why don't we just read it online? That'll get a lot of listeners.
Oh, read it live? Yeah.
Yeah,
Just do an audiobook.
Just do an audiobook for it.
I like that plan. Why not?
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll catch you all in the new year. Thank you to the droids.
Stay
Thank you
safe
to our
out there.
listeners.
Yeah.
We have had a wonderful year with all of you. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Well, we've had a terrible year, but a wonderful time.
Yes, exactly.
You all, your words, your messages, your reviews, you're the reason that makes this all so much fun.
Really, those reviews,
blabber.
they've made big differences in our year, honestly, when you put them out there.
Thank you so much for listening.
So, again, if you want to rate and review us on iTunes, you can give us a little gift at the end of the year as well. We wouldn't mind it. But that's going to do it for 2020 of The Droids You're Looking For, a Star Wars podcast.
What they throw? Annie?
You guys want to go find the Book of Boba?
Hey, you want to go to medieval books?